Welcome again to our program, Studio Galaxy 473. And you are today with the Equalizer, Francis Pierre. And today's program, we're asking the question, what is the impact of the NDC government on the youthful population in Grenada? What is the impact? We have been with a government 2 years plus, under 3 years. And in our democratic dynamics, you expect a government to stay for 4.5, 5 years. So after 2.5 years, after 2 years, you have to definitely start to see the impact that the government have. And the government have 4 to 5 years, not 10. If after 5 years people don't agree with what you do, they change you. So this morning we're asking, what is the impact of the NDC government on the youthful population? You can join in and make your contribution. You can post on Studio Galaxy 473, or you can call. The number to call is 410-3030. WhatsApp call alone we could take. We will love for you to join us. You don't have to agree with us. Sometimes we don't even agree with ourselves. You don't have to agree with us. We want you to make your contribution. The National Democratic Congress won 9 seats in the last election. The last time we had a 9-6 was in 1976. 1976. They won 9-6. An overwhelming majority where the parliament is concerned. And then one member crossed over the floor and joined the National Democratic Congress. The Congress targeted the young people of the country. They targeted them. They gave them amount of promises. The 9 members of the Congress sold themselves as new and young. Well, they're not so young, but they're young in politics. The Prime Minister himself was brand new. He has not been involved in politics before. And the population, particularly the young people, decided to vote the NDC government. Now I'm asking, what is the impact of the NDC government on the youthful population? Positive impact or negative impact? I have not been satisfied. I'm not satisfied. And I'm going to point out a number of areas where I'm very dissatisfied with the performance, with the trajectory, with the philosophy, with the attitude of the National Democratic Congress. And perhaps the first one we could look at education. Every philosopher, every great politician would put quite a lot of emphasis on education. Eric Gary did 28 schools in 13.5 years. St. George's University, pre-primary education, technical education. He did that with a lot of assistance from Canada. Gary introduced daycare center. The purpose of daycare center was the mothers could drop the children in the daycare center and go to work. Gary said if the children could cuss, they could learn. If they could dance, they could learn. He constantly pushed that among his people. Educate your children. Send them to school. This came from a man that did not have any recognized formal education. Gary only had a school living, and he taught in Lafayette School. In those days, you could have teach with a school living certificate. Today, they will shoot you. And the next thing Gary had, he gave this sermon in the church. A priest gave him, at the age of 12, the permission to do this sermon in the church. That's all he had in terms of academic education and academic privilege. But he believed in education. That is the interesting part. Wherever he had sojourned, the people would say, Uncle Gary say, send the children to school. Send the children to school. And the people resisted, because a lot of people believed then that the children couldn't learn. If your daughter is kind of looking good and she kind of fair, you send her and do sewing. Or you send her go and work with some rich people. You send your son to go and do carpentry, mason, tailor, shoemaker. If your son you have big nose, thick lip, and he big like you send him go and cutlass in there. You say you're strong like a bull. You could bring plenty load in. And Gary took a battle to break the people from that, to convince them that he must educate your children. Then you had Maurice Bishop overthrew the country. But Maurice Bishop recognized the importance of education. And he continued to send a number of young people to countries in the Eastern Bloc countries, Czechoslovakia, Kenya, Cuba, East Germany. Number of our people went to these countries. Then you had 1983 came. You know that ended in bloodshed. The Marxist-Leninist experiment ended in bloodshed. All other governments continue to put emphasis on education. Kit Mitchell, the University of St. George's University, declared him as the Prime Minister of Education. More scholarship was provided under Kit Mitchell time than in any other period of equal time in Grenada. So he continued to believe in education. Kit Mitchell, while in opposition, used to go around in areas teaching maths because he's a mathematician and he recognized that we were weak in maths. These people believe in education. Now we have the National Democratic Congress, NDC. What is a track record in education? Look at the poor performance after burial in Carriacou. The NDC forgot that schools were supposed to open. The Minister of Education took his holidays. That is a crime. If I had the power, I'd give him 6 strokes. No permanent secretary, no minister should be permitted to take the holiday during that time. No public officer in Carriacou could have taken the holiday. Because as a public officer, you could be transferred to a place of equivalent status. And you have, in an emergency, sometimes you have to be mobilized. The Minister of Education took his holiday. Schools were not able to be open. And the government used the play fields as a dumping ground. There are many places in Carriacou that you could have used as a dumping ground. You could have used Patalimle Farm, Godong Bialu. You could have used around Grand Bay. You could have used Dumfries. You could have used around Thibault. The government chose to use play fields as a dumping ground. That sends a serious signal that the government either don't like, not interested in, don't care, or plain straight stupid. And that must have impacted very negatively on the children of Carriacou. I don't think you could get a better, worse record than that. Look at St. Patrick's, MacDonald College School, one school that had some minor damages in the school. Up to today, you cannot have the formal routine going on in the schools. Children have to be going to school by turn in a shift system. It was better that the government start school 7 o'clock in the morning and do a 2-shift system where the children could go to school. It was better that the government called the Form 2s and Form 3s to come into school 1 o'clock, whereas the other form comes 7 in the morning. Even if arrangement had to be made with the buses to function later. Another option was the government using neighboring schools based upon proximity to the residence of the children. Waltham, Montrose, Sass, St. Joseph Convent, and the school in Paul's. To use these secondary schools to accommodate the students so they're not out of school. This is the worst track record I've heard about education. I asked the question, what is the impact of the NDC government on the youthful population? I have been fighting to get positives, but I think the negatives far overwhelm any positive intention on the children, on the young people. I look with utter contempt and distaste at the Minister of Labor and Attorney General of our country, and to beside a woman encouraging the young people in the wrong direction. The videos I saw with her was most distasteful. I don't know how we could have a woman of such high reputation based upon her qualification, a lawyer, somebody of the legal mind, openly defying the law and encouraging the young people to do the same. That can be right. I also notice that the government take a serious taste for visiting schools. And whereas that might have been a good thing, but based on the government performances, I don't think it's a good thing. I think the government visits to school have a negative impact. Why do I say that? This government, I don't think anybody would dispute it, that they have a natural tendency to tell lies. And while you are doing that, and in this era of technology, you have to be careful with the words that come from your mouth. None of us is perfect. All of us will make mistakes, particularly politicians who are speaking not from script, That's how I am speaking now. They will make mistakes. But when you make a mistake, you must be humble enough to express an apology. The government has not apologized. And it could well mean that his school children would tell more lies and they would have no apology. They say monkey do what monkey see. We have seen and heard the amount of acts of corruption, blatant acts of corruption associated with the government. The rumors and speculation is running wild in the country. And the government only response was, and it's that. That is arrogant. That is unacceptable. That there are some issues you ought to give explanation or provide justification. Somebody might be criticizing you because they don't know why you are doing what you are doing. And if you come out and explain to them, they may understand. But in the absence of any explanation, rumors and speculation is going to run wild. And the government only answer, and it's that. That is arrogant. That is rude. That is unacceptable. And remember, monkey do what monkey see. You must be aware of the impact music have on our people. It's one of the poets that say, music is the food of love. Let it play on. And the way sometimes our people behave, perhaps music is the food of love. I don't know which love. Because music have them whining. Nothing wrong with wine. I like wine. Music have them obeying instruction that if it is photographed, will be an albatross around the neck for the rest of their life. Government have to come in and set examples. The government has not been doing that. The government claim that if you're not working for enough money, you will be corrupt. I have never heard that in my life. When you live in some of the most generous villages in Grenada are considered as low socioeconomic communities. Let me repeat that. Some of the poorest place in Grenada is the most generous place in Grenada. La Poterie, Conference, Paul's, Telescope, in the St. Andrews area, you might consider these places as the lowest income group. They have the biggest salaka. People rear their sheep and goat. They keep pigs. They plant peas. And they tell you that is for the salaka. I have never witnessed more generosity in these communities. The poor of the poor will kill a pig valued $1,200. They've been growing it for the whole year. That is for the salaka. They're buying bakanek and chicken wings. But the pig is for the salaka. The goat is for the salaka. The peas is for the salaka. The yam is for the salaka. Now boatmen going on whole fish for the salaka. And these people are poor. They're struggling to send their children in school. So the Prime Minister's statement is wrong. It's an insult to the poor man. Because you're poor doesn't mean you're corrupt. Some of the most corrupted people in the world are very, very rich people. But when you as a government is establishing that as a policy, it has quite a lot of negative consequences, particularly on the youthful population. The government declared that it was going to legalize weed. There was no M, F, or maybe. The previous government had one reading in Parliament to liberalize weed and hope that there will be widespread discussion on the issue. This government claimed we are going to legalize weed. No discussion. The government went further. The prime minister went further and make social media movie while he playing with weed in a known individual yard that the police felt was an issue in the front of the police present. The prime minister was diluting the significance of the police, insulting them, and employing an individual who had the natural inclination to flaunt the law in front of the police. The prime minister made a movie, a social media movie, with an illegal substance, to which is weed. What impact you think that had on the ordinary individuals? Some individuals that not too meticulous about the law believe if the priest could play Who Is Me, and they believe that the prime minister legalized weed. So they was planting weed and flaunting weed. I had to speak to a number of individuals and say, don't worry. When weed is legalized, I go put up a sign on the rum shop. But in the meantime, don't smoke in the rum shop. I had to speak to a number of individuals who was falling weed on the social media. And I communicate with them and ask them to delete it because weed is not legalized. Then we saw an upsurge in gun crime, disrespect for the police, and some social decadence that I place squarely at the foot of the prime minister. The policy of the National Democratic Congress and the actions of the Minister of Labor and Attorney General and Legal Affairs. So I believe that the NDC have had some very negative, the policy of the NDC has been very negative, particularly among young people. Within a country, it is natural for young people sometimes to push the pendulum. They want to do what they want to do. And young people today is not different from young people 10,000 years ago. Same thing. In fact, our young people perhaps is more prepared for the future than we were. But young people is young people. They will push the pendulum. They want a motor car? No. They don't have money to buy a cycle, but they want a car? No. And if they convince the parents who have discretionary income to buy a car for them, well, they have to convince the mother to maintain the car. They want a car. Young women dreaming. They want a good man now to give them all what they want. And if they get one good man, they don't mind having 10 good men to give them all the trimmings of beauty. And maybe a little car. And to ram in a house with it on some holidays. And they're not prepared to pay the price. And that is young people. So young people was 1,000,000 years ago. It is the older people in the society that help to restrain them, to channel them, and to encourage them. You have to work for what you want. And there is a price. And to remind them about dignity, about good character, about morality. I believe the actions of the NDC and the Prime Minister has encouraged young people to be immoral. One of the powerful statements the Prime Minister made, that morality is a private thing. I've never heard that in my life. Without morality, democracy is dead. Without morality, democracy is dead. And any society that decides to dilute the impact of morality would have crime. You don't have to believe me. Go and do some research on Didi and them. Those American black superstars. How they use women, not women alone, and men too, as sex objects while they massage their heart. They encourage them. We're going to help you if you could do that. They use them as sex toys. They use them to blow the trumpet. They took pictures from them and they blackmailed them. This is one of the cases that PDD or DDP, you could research it. When the leader of the country advocating that morality is a private thing, he is also encouraging our young people to be immoral, to flaunt the law with impunity. It is the first time. It is the first time in Grenada. I have seen politicians flaunting the law with impunity. Politicians always breaking law, but they hiding to break it. But this group flaunt the law with impunity. And when you do that, you are making the road for corruption very possible. All governments in the past, post 1967, have been fighting to close corruption door. It's not easy because man is easily tempted. Man is tempted by food, drinks, and women. And when you're a politician, you have power. So you are tempted more. But governments have put laws and regulation in place to close the door to corruption. Government had the GDB Bank. The bank was established to help farmers, to help people in the cottage industry, to help vendors, low-income people that the commercial bank don't like. Like might be an interesting word. When you're dealing with economics, you have some people you don't want to see them. They are economic risk. You don't want to lend them money. No matter how nice the project is. You believe they won't pay back. That if they get money, they will buy gold chain and go on holiday and they won't pay the bank. They don't have nothing to keep as collateral. So government come up with the Grenada Development Bank. As part of the regulation, they say no minister of government, no directors of the board, and the minister's immediate family cannot get loan from the bank. This was a safety net to prevent temptation. It doesn't mean that the minister and the family don't pay. It doesn't mean that they cannot qualify. But they believe if the government ministers establish the bank and they appoint the directors and their relatives come for loan, they will give their relatives. The policy of drummers' food, family first. So they put a safety net that you and your family and the directors cannot get. This government flaunt the law with impunity. That sends a message to other people in other areas that they could flaunt the law with impunity. As a result of that action in the GDB Bank, and the bank always seems as a super company with super rules. We heard what was going on in National Lottery, where the two signatures have an incestuous relationship. and they are signing checks to one another. And when the matter was reported to the Prime Minister fired the messenger. It means that the Prime Minister is directly or indirectly complicit with that action. What message it sends? It sends a message to young people that you could flaunt the law with impunity and get away. Or you could have an incestuous relationship with a man of importance to benefit financially. These are all the negative consequences of the National Democratic Party that I believe have seriously impacted on our youthful population. We are not speaking about the government promise to the young people that they will make them permanent. These people who in the government work, this one was a shocker. And then the government opened defiant and denial that they did not see that. Although there is empirical evidence that they did. And when they are confronted with empirical evidence, they say, and it's that. I am disappointed. I am surprised. I am seriously grieved of the government tendency to live luxurious life. Going back in history, we have seen a number of individuals commit serious crimes simply because they wanted to live above their means. One of the shining examples in the world is the butcher of the Congo. He was practically tearing the skin off the backs of the people of the Congo so he could live a luxurious life in Belgium with his friends. The government in Belgium did not care. The Emperor of Germany, he told the Emperor of Germany what we're going to do because he realized power was moving from the empires. And he got the license and the right to plunder the Congo. Nobody in Belgium cared. It was the imperial power in Europe that was shocked at the barbarity of the butcher of the Congo and called on Belgium to restrain him. 20 million Africans was affected. Perhaps the worst genocide in modern times. You look at Abdul Malik, Michael de Freitas. He was once a civil rights leader, but he fell for the luxurious life. And look at how it ended. We have a number of lessons in our country. Our politicians in Grenada, prior to Dick Mitchell and his group, live very frugal lives and was not that corrupted. But I believe all these things is going to mar the very social fabric of our society, could contribute to more corrupt young people, more people falling prey, more young people ending up in situations that they ought not to. The government of Grenada dabble in their cult. And this one is significant. When your leadership dabble in their cult, it could send a message as if it's a catalyst for other people who have the tendency to wanting quick to do the same. This government have had some serious negative impact on our youthful population. We ought not to ignore it. we could ignore it to the detriment of our children. If we want to ignore it, let us be reminded that what is going on in the United States of America now with PDD, the amount of power he wielded because he was able to blackmail based upon the reports we hearing. I think they're supposed to have some trial. So the reports we hearing are just reports. A man is innocent unless proven guilty. But you have even individuals who claim they were victims speaking out. He used them without one iota or one concern for morality and their own lives. We live in a country where the church and religion more and more is diluted. Young people are staying away from the church. And for any one reason, any number of reasons. We always go back to slavery. And I always remind people that black people were selling slaves for 700 years before white people go and die. So the hate that we have for white people is more manufactured. Black people sold us in slavery. And when you see the actions of a number of successful black leaders, the ease with which they use people, we have to examine ourselves. We must not be afraid to examine ourselves. I am very concerned about our young people in Grenada. You don't find them in much groups. The government has not been promoting groups, whether it's sports group or cultural groups. Children do very well in secondary school in sports. But even those who do well and the passion that exists in secondary schools, by the time they leave school, that passion dies. We see strong sportsmen on drugs, coke, weed, and excessive nice rum. They drink one amount of rum as if they're going to drink all the rum in one day. Teeth falling out in their mouth. They even don't bother about cleaning teeth or keeping teeth in good order. The women that used to look like a Coke bottle, they turn like a sugar jar. And now the blessed assurance has grown to unimaginable magnitude. And they model with it on the road. They forget that they were 400 meters runner. They were athletes. They were high jumpers in our society. Now, how that could be in a small society like ours? We see a number of our young people seems to be so fascinating with material things that the first money they get, they buy a car, forgetting they have to buy gas and they have to fix tire. So we have a lot of young people with cars, but they can't buy gas. They can't buy tire. As if they didn't understand that. As if we want to, who are we impressing? If the boy buy a car to impress a girl, then he can't buy gas to go nowhere with her. We see a number of women in relationship. And it seems as though the economics of the relationship is more important than the love. But if we have a society that downplay the importance of morality and character and hard work, then what do you expect? And if the leadership, this group of individuals is the most unproductive group of politicians I ever heard about in Grenada. All over the years and all over the time, even in the revolution, our politicians were more productive. They lived more frugal lives. They were more genuine. Bear it in all that during the experiment with the revolution, they became very idealistic and believe that if you didn't support my ideology, we should put you in jail. But today in our society, the government says church and state is separate. All the individuals who are in government today seems to downplay the importance or the impact of the church in the society. And I ask the question, what are the programs the government have for young people? We know the NDC don't like the Imani program. A program that involves more than 3,000 people. Nothing is wrong with that. But you must come up with a better alternative. That's all we're saying. You must come up with a better alternative. I believe the damage that the government has done, the policy of the National Democratic Congress, have done untold damage to the psyche, to the mentality, to the economic dream of our young people. But I believe in hope, and I believe they could change. When the Prime Minister went in Nigeria, the Prime Minister begged for St. David's, not for the whole country. And the Prime Minister asked for 1,000 cricket kits. What is involved in a kit? Maybe a bat, a pad, a helmet, and a ball's guard in a cricket kit. Basic. You want 1,000. Maybe if he made in Indonesia, it could well cost 10 US per one. Now, the Prime Minister did not ask the richest man in Africa to support him with $10 million to teach Spanish in primary school. The Prime Minister could have get Dangote, the richest man in Africa, and help him to bring in 100 Venezuelans and put them in the primary schools to teach Spanish for 5 years. And maybe initiate a program that in the next 30, 40 years, Grenada could declare itself as having a second language. Why is a second language important? Because of our geopolitical relationship with Latin America and the Spanish countries. It is almost necessary and wise and prudent that the majority of our young people could speak Spanish. It opens the door for more scholarships. If Grenada select 10 Latin American countries and get 10 scholarships from each one every year, a small country like ours, that is exceptionally significant. The Prime Minister asked for 1,000 cricket kits. The Prime Minister could have asked Dan Ototo or what, to give us a $10 million assistance or $5 million assistance to teach swimming in primary schools. That each primary school would have a swimming program. That 80% of our people can swim. And I'm certain that man might have been fascinated with that. And you could start a program like that. The sea is 30 minutes walk away, perhaps at the furthest point as the crew flies. But in some area, because we have heavy-duty vehicles, in collaboration with those operators, you could have convert swimway in the river and teach our people to swim. And maybe in the next 10 years, we have among the clubs all around the seashore, from Guave to Victoria to Grenville to Maki to Woburn, with swimmers. And who knows, we might have more swimmers in the Olympic. The Prime Minister asked for 1,000 cricket gears from St. David's School. The Prime Minister never asked for something for the country. Where they get this man? The Prime Minister's mind is not on the development of Grenada. He want to make certain that if everybody lose the city wins. This is selfishness of the worst kind. You could go to any psychologist, any clinical psychologist, and ask this question. They'll be stunned. He is the leader of Grenada. And he have to reflect that. Remember, the prime minister went to Liver. You have two ministers from St. Patrick's. And he asked the company in Liver to help St. David's. Nobody get this, man. We have to ask this question. If you have a son in your house that always stealing cheese and stealing bread and stealing sugar, and you don't correct him, and he lying, and you don't correct him, he go end up in jail. Particularly if you don't have money to pay. So I think the negative consequences of the National Democratic Congress far outweigh the positive. I've been looking for positive, but there was none of substance. Look at what the Prime Minister has done in Grenada with the 100-house unit in Carrick. This is significant because what affects the parents will be more traumatic on the young boys. Look at the draconian law that the Prime Minister wants to pass after he and his government and the Attorney General contributed to the upsurging crime. He panics. So the Prime Minister do not have a plan for any productivity, a positive attitude among young people. And I believe the impact of the NDC on the youthful population is very negative and will come out with negative consequences. I've said that before in another program, but I think it is significant for me to say it again. The schools, when you pass in a school, 9 o'clock in the morning or 9:30, and the school is celebrating, and you hear a song rejoicing because people suffering, your blood run cold. You nice little innocent children you send in school, dancing and whining, are glad you see in trouble. You expect patriotic songs like Island in the Sun. You expect songs perhaps like Sparrow Song. Children go to school and learn well. You have some religious songs that are very powerful and they have a soca genre. That is the correct phrase to put to the soca. But you hear young children rejoicing that people see in trouble. You embolden men to sing songs about women that give them a tabanka. And they praying those women dead. What kind of society is that? These things always happen. But a government must not encourage it. When the government or the policymakers encourage it, it spreads like wildfire. What positive? I wish somebody could call me. Because it's always good to say the government do something positive. What positive for young people the government has done? What initiative the government has introduced to develop cricket in primary school? Remember, the kits he bringing is only for St. David's. What initiative the government has come up with to introduce football in primary school? What initiative the government has to introduce draft playing? We have some very good draft players in the world. Draft and chess. You ever see a rowdy, good draft player? I've never seen a rowdy, good draft player. They tend to be more calm and serene and gentle. What initiative the Prime Minister has come to introduce people studying business in school, to bring in businessmen to do part-time lectures with them. Bearing in mind the children are doing economics and POB and economic principles and management and psychology, they are taught by people from the book. What initiative you have to bring the businessmen, the Syrians, the Indians, Kenny Larson, and the other successful businessmen in the world, Bezinski and them, to go and interact with the schools as motivational speakers in the world of business. What? What the Prime Minister has done. The Prime Minister has exhibited luxurious life, flying all over the world, lying without compunction. What example is he setting for our young minds? I ask this question because I'm concerned. Remember, destruction of a people doesn't come overnight. It takes time. Sometimes we cannot see. Sometimes we don't want to see. Sometimes, because of what we benefit, we prefer to shelf it for the future. So as we continue to further the destruction of the fabric of our society, it's going to come to haunt us. How do you explain the Prime Minister of Grenada and the NDC policy of restorative justice? Tell me what good it has in it. I encourage you to discuss these things with your family members or your partners on the block. What is the positive of restorative justice? What positive you expect? If you introduce restorative justice as a policy and its practicality and its workability on the ground is more political vengeance, are you not institutionalizing political vengeance? What are you advocating? An eye for an eye and a tooth for tooth? Why? Why is it necessary? A small society where we are interrelated, where we have a lot of families that join up. Why are you introducing? Why are you establishing vengeance? Yes, we have vengeance in the society already. Man is weak, but you don't encourage it. But when you have a policy of government that facilitates, that serves as a catalyst, that provide the medium for vengeance to grow, it grows faster than you think. It fractures the society. What do you think is the impact of the language that is so common among the Prime Minister and senior members of the NDC? The language that is so common among them. What do you think is the impact it has on our youthful population? You have to ask yourself this question. It makes no sense getting angry with me. I'm here to provoke discussion. And if you're angry and you walk away, I say you have no facts, so you're walking away. If when I say that you're angry and you attack me personally, I only smile. And I say behind your back, when they don't have facts, they just attack you personally. I expect you to give justification and reasons and rationale and make sure it is logical. Because people want to understand what you say and your intention. Do you agree with the language, the utterances, the expression that is so easy to emanate from the mouth of our leadership? Do you agree with that? Are you satisfied that this present government has done anything worthy of talking about to motivate our young people to be positive? Are you concerned that some of the actions of the government could create fracture and discontent and growing vindictiveness among our people? Are you concerned? Do you listen to the other ministers? Do you honestly find it makes sense? I'm certain you listen to them. Be honest with yourself. You don't want to tell me. Watch in the mirror and ask, when I listen to this minister, does this minister make sense? Does this minister know what's going on? What is going to happen to our young people? You have to be concerned about your children and your youthful population, particularly when you're poor. You see, if you have discretionary income, there's always something for your child to fall back on. So your daughter went to school and she didn't do well. And for a couple of years, she was flaunting, she beauty all around. But now she decided to change. So she's 35 years. And you could come in now because you have discretionary income. And you could help set her up. Sometimes you have enough clout that she could even get a job. Or if she want to continue her studies, she could do it. You might even help her get a good man to get married. You say, there is a good man, he has plenty of money. Marry him. And because she float around for quite a while, she have experience. But if you poor, what you do? Coco Jenna pie. Coco Jenna pie. When you poor, the policies of a government have more negative or positive consequences on you. The rich man don't need government. Some of them more powerful than the government. The intellectuals don't need the government. A medical doctor could get a job in any Caribbean country. After he killed half of his patients in Grenada, 5 years after, he's a well-experienced doctor. They don't expect him to kill so much. He won't cause so much suing. He could get a job in Barbados and Vincent America. An engineer come down in Grenada here for the 5 years, only mistake he make. But the companies want him after 5 years experience. So he's not likely to make all these impactful mistakes. You don't need government. A successful company know how to bend over and twakase. And they know how to pass on the expenses. So if they have to buy a car, they buy a car through the company. The car is transportation for the company. They put their son in the company. They pay him a small wage, but they make him responsible for logistics, and he have to go on the port, so he need a transport. They know how to talk and say and bend over. But you, the person in the lower income group, do you know how to talk and say and bend over? You are left with the shitty end of the stick. So in my mind, it's a sad day for Grenada. The policies of the National Democratic Congress have had some very negative effect on our youthful population. And we could pay a high price in the future for the negative seeds that are sown now. This is the Galaxy Equalizer. Today you had only Francis Pierre. Remember, the number to call is 410-3030. And we encourage you to share our program and subscribe to the Galaxy, to the Studio Galaxy. Then you interact with the Galaxy Equalizers. Thank you very much.
There are a lot of different, you know.